The moment her knees hit the cold diner floor, the entire room froze, not out of kindness, but out of fear. Plates paused midair, coffee cups trembled in aging hands, and the hum of fluorescent lights grew louder than the sound of her breaking heart. And what happened next would remind everyone that silence can wound just as deeply as cruelty. Before we go any further, if you believe kindness still matters in this world, take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Warriors, because this channel needs your support to spread kindness around the world. Tell us where you're watching from, and tell us honestly, do you believe kindness is still important today? Her name was Mara Collins, and not long ago, her life, though modest, was filled with warmth. She had a small apartment that carried the comforting scent of laundry soap and bedtime stories, a job cleaning offices at night, and 2 children who looked at her as if she could fix anything. But life has a quiet way of unraveling everything at once. It began with layoffs, an email, a final paycheck, and suddenly the fragile stability she had built was gone. Rent notices followed, stacking like silent threats, and the pantry that once held enough slowly echoed with emptiness. Still, Mara fought. She skipped meals, stretched every loaf of bread, and walked miles searching for work. But that morning, when her youngest child cried from hunger so hard his face turned red, something inside her shattered. For the first time, she had nothing left to give. And so, swallowing every ounce of pride she had left, she made a decision that felt heavier than anything she had carried before: she would ask for help. The diner felt like a small refuge when she stepped inside, the smell of fried food and coffee wrapping around her like a memory of better days. For a moment, she believed this might be simple. Maybe someone would understand. The booths were filled with regulars, people clinging to routine as if it held their lives together. Behind the counter stood Ronan Keller, a man hardened by years of control and bitterness. When he saw Mara, her worn clothes, her tired eyes, he didn't see a struggling mother. He saw a disruption. Mara approached him carefully, her voice barely a whisper as she asked if there was any food that would otherwise be thrown away. She didn't ask for money or pity, just something to take home to her children. For a brief second, silence hung in the air, but then Ronan's face tightened with irritation. His voice rose, sharp and cold, cutting through the diner. He dismissed her, mocked her, and when she tried again, desperate but respectful, his patience snapped. Without warning, his hand shot forward and shoved her hard. Mara stumbled, her body hitting the unforgiving floor. The sound echoed louder than it should have, and a few people gasped, but no one moved. Pain shot through her hands as they scraped the tiles, but the pain wasn't the worst part, it was the humiliation. Her dignity scattered in that moment like crumbs no one cared to notice. The diner fell silent, not because people agreed with what had happened, but because fear held them in place. Some looked away, others stared at their cups, pretending not to see. Ronan's anger only grew stronger in that silence. He felt justified, powerful, convinced he was protecting his space from someone he deemed lesser. Mara tried to speak, to explain, but her voice failed her. Shame wrapped around her throat, leaving her breathless and small. Then the door opened, and everything shifted. Heavy boots stepped inside, the quiet presence of a group of bikers filling the space without a single word. They weren't what people expected, they weren't chaos or danger, but something steadier, something grounded. Their leader, Elias Monroe, took in the scene with calm understanding. He didn't need explanations to recognize pain. Life had taught him that lesson long ago. The bikers didn't rush forward or raise their voices. They simply stood there, their presence alone changing the balance of the room. Ronan noticed them, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. The power he thought he held began to slip. Mara slowly pushed herself up, expecting more cruelty, but instead, a hand reached out to her, gentle, steady, respectful. It helped her to her feet as if she mattered. Elias asked quietly what had happened, his tone calm but firm, and that calm broke something open. Mara spoke, hesitant at first, then honest. She spoke of her children, of empty cupboards, of the desperation that brought her there. Her words filled the room, and with them came a shift. The silence that once protected cruelty now turned into something else: guilt. One person stood, then another. A woman offered to pay for her meal, then someone else added more. Plates began to fill the counter, not out of obligation, but out of compassion that had finally found its voice. Someone placed a warm coat over Mara's shoulders, noticing how thin her sweater was. The room that once watched in silence now moved together in quiet unity. Ronan stepped back, his authority dissolving under the weight of what he had done. No one needed to shout at him, the truth was enough. The bikers didn't demand anything, they didn't need to. Their presence reminded everyone that kindness doesn't require permission, only courage. Mara sat down, her hands trembling as she held the food. Tears fell again, but this time they carried relief instead of shame. For the first time in months, she felt seen, not as a burden, but as a mother, as a person who mattered. When she finally stood to leave, her arms were full, not just with food, but with something far more powerful, hope. Outside, the sunlight felt warmer, the air lighter. Kindness around the world. Tell us where you're watching from, and tell us honestly, do you believe kindness still matters today? And before you go, drop one word in the comments that describes how this story made you feel, because your word might be the hope someone else is searching for.